Hello to all of my BPTV friends, YouTube friends, Facebook friends. I'm Alan Levine, the Talking Machine. I'm doing my 29th Maria's Ideas Teaches Us to Paint.
Hi friends, and welcome if you've been with us before. If not, we're so glad to have you. We are here at Johno's Art Studio in the Southside Slopes in Pittsburgh. We're about 2 miles from downtown Pittsburgh. If you're ever in the area, you can stop by. And my special guest, very special guest, I've been trying to get her on here for a very long time, and I'm so glad she's finally here. And some of you probably recognize her from, I'll let her tell you, but this is my sweet, lovely cousin, Elaine. Yay. So welcome, Elaine. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me on, cuz I am not just excited and happy to be here, but I'm super, just honored to be here.
Oh,
so
we're happy to have you.
So much.
Yeah, I'm honored and blessed to have you here. And you're just unbelievable. And can you paint?
And Elaine's a big part of BPTV, so you can let them know what else you do, right? Yeah?
Oh, yeah. But he was saying, do I paint? I don't, but one of the things that I learned from watching this show is that anybody can paint.
Oh, definitely.
Right?
Look at me.
Maria's not only an amazing artist, but an amazing teacher as well.
Thank you.
Yes.
And
Thank you for
I do
watching.
feel like everybody has that inner artist.
Oh,
right?
everybody does.
Anybody can do it.
But if you don't try it, how do you know?
Exactly.
And it's just practice. It's like anything. It's just practice.
Yep. Well, I'm ready to give it a go today.
Yeah.
All right.
So, and you work at the Bethel Park Public Library?
I'm a children's librarian over at the Bethel Park Public Library. I've been there for, I think, 23 years.
Wow.
I
No
know,
way.
a long, long time. And I love it. I love my job. And in fact, we are gearing up for our annual art gala.
Nice.
So this is kind of fitting that I'm here painting today.
Stay tuned in July.
Right.
What's in July?
The art gala and music.
Oh,
Right.
for Bethel Park, for
Yeah.
all of
Right.
Bethel Park.
Oh,
That's
the
going to be
library. You got
the
your
library
special
does.
event.
Where we
I
like
stand corrected.
we like to showcase children and teens artwork, and they can bring
it's
in
great.
anything. And this year, we're going to keep it on display all summer long.
Oh, nice.
So start dropping off that
that's-
artwork, everyone.
Wow, that
art,
is great.
Art and music, we need more of it. Yay.
That's the truth.
So, all right. Well, we'll talk about everything that you're doing and your stories, bedtime stories and all that too, but we're just going to get started here. So I designed this for Elaine, Books and Birds.
Wow.
And the cardinals I knew were special for her. There are a lot of different meaning here for us. And it's springtime and the cardinals are singing. And I thought, why not this? That's a good time to do that. So what we're going to do is, and I should probably say, so I pre-draw this. And if you watch the tutorial, there's a tutorial on Maria's Ideas Art, the YouTube channel. That's not on the BPTV channel, just on mine. I do the 10-minute tutorial to help you draw the design if you need help with that. If you do, you can do it one of two ways. You can draw it right on the canvas. You can draw it on a piece of paper. So I had to put this on a piece of paper first. Then you can transfer the drawing. You can get, this is graphite paper. You can use graphite paper. It's very easy to purchase and it's very inexpensive. You can use it over and over and over again. Or you can just draw it on a piece of paper. You can put rub a pencil or chalk or something on the back, and then you transfer it on. If you don't want to scribble and erase and get all
Maria,
messy on your
to
canvas.
interrupt you, we were doing that with our first bunch of shows.
Yes.
So I thank you for saving me
I
the
just
time
do it ahead of time
to
and
trace everything.
Sure, and I could certainly teach you how to draw this right now.
did.
But that's another half an hour, 45 minutes, and we just want to focus on the painting. So anyway, that's how we have it transferred on there, but you can watch the tutorial. So what we're going to do, we're using acrylics. We're using red, yellow, white, black, blue, and green. I try to keep it simple color palette. You can learn to mix colors and everything too. And we are using, just our synthetic brushes and water, and we're ready to go. So
What brush?
Well, I'm just looking right now. I'm thinking we're going to use the biggest brush first. So what we're going to do, when you start with acrylics, you typically paint from the back to the front. Now, the other thing you could do is you could paint, if you knew this background, you wanted it to be a pale blue. You could paint the whole canvas pale blue, let it dry, then draw the design on top of it, and it's all done. And then you don't have to paint around things. But I personally like to paint around things to give it more of a painterly look. You get texture in there, and so we don't worry about it being a perfectly smooth painting. We like to have some texture in there. So have fun with it, okay? Don't worry about it being perfectly smooth.
And make sure you dip your paintbrush in the water and dab it a little.
Yes. So what we're doing...
You'll be ready to roll, Miss Elaine.
Absolutely. So what we're doing first is the background. Now I have it fairly subtle because I want that bird to pop. I want the books. The background is not as important. So we are mixing, our blue is very strong. We are mixing the white with the blue. Always start with the light color first. Oh. Alan, as he's dipping into the blue. It's okay.
How long have you been doing this?
Number 29. I hadn't painted in 50 years, so I'm struggling a little.
It's fine. It's just a habit. I do the same thing sometimes. I'm like, oh, I have to go light.
I'm going white right now.
Yeah, so we're using a 1-inch flat brush. We're dipping it into the water. That just helps the brush accept the paint. So start with your lighter color. So ours is going to be the white with the blue. And we're going to put some on our palette. Our palette is just a paper plate that has a coating. If you use the plates that don't have a coating, it absorbs too quickly and it'll dry out and it's harder to mix. So we're going to put a generous amount because we have a big background, but we can always mix as we go. And then, and I never clean the brushes in between, rarely, unless I have to, just because I like when the colors mix. So just take the corner of your brush and just dip it in, go into the side of the color so you don't have to contaminate everything, just that little bit. And then put that beside the white, not into the white, and then pull it in. As you can see, there's already some that was on my brush. It's going to dry darker. It's going to dry almost a shade darker. So I like this color as it is. It might look a little bit lighter on the camera, but it's going to dry darker. So I'm going to add a little bit more white because I know it's going to be darker than that when it dries. And you can see I'm flipping my brush even, like that's beautiful, and that's a great color, but it is going to be darker. So I would say maybe a little more white. Yeah. And then you could even put the white next to this and then pull that into it so that you're not just trying to mix that same color, just keeps going back. It's a very strong blue, so it will take a lot of...
It even helps me.
Yeah. So, and that's it. So we're going to come in and just paint the background. I don't know how visible this is because it is pretty light, and we're just going like this. You can see, like, you don't have to go perfectly horizontal brush strokes. I tend to go like this and flip the brush, and I'll leave some of those brush strokes there. You see how it just almost it just gives it more interest. I feel like more expressionist type of painting, I guess we do a little bit more. And then it also gives it almost like a cloud-like look. And then,
see, I'm so afraid I'm going to kind of like go on the cardinal or the tree, but that's probably okay.
Well, I was just going to say, go as close as you can, and you can even lightly paint over those lines because you can still see through. And you can use a smaller brush. When you get closer, you can use the smaller...
or even turn it on an edge.
Yes, you can see how if you take the corner like this.
See, she taught me some things.
So you don't... Sometimes it's actually easier with a bigger brush to do some details, certain details, because your hand is more steady with a bigger brush. And
that makes sense.
So you can see right here, I'm just taking that corner and I'm just putting that, see the corner in there? How I'm going close? Yeah. And then you can do that all the way around. Now the one thing that I would say to keep in mind when we're doing this background, we have the light source is coming from this side because you can see there's the light on here, there's light, there's a shadow here, there's shadows under here. So our light source is on the left. So we are going to add maybe a suggestion of a sun color there, but I feel like if you want to add a little bit more blue, a little bit darker, do that on the right side.
On this side,
and even the upper right side, because not that it has to be true to an actual what a sky looks like, because again, we don't worry about that too much. We just like to have fun with our paintings and not worry about them being so precise with things like that. But if you wanted to get some of that darker blue, I would do that in the upper right because the sky's always brighter closer to the horizon, whether it's a sunset or sunrise. So, and that's it. So we'll just we're going to fill this in. Or how about we chat a little bit while we're going along? So tell us about your bedtime story.
It's going to be hard
Elaine,
for me too.
right?
I can't I have to concentrate on. No, I'm happy to. So I've done bedtime stories, and that kind of just I don't really know how that came to be. I think I started doing Book Nook years ago.
Okay.
But that was like a longer show, right? So
how long are your shows?
Well,
roughly?
5-minute bedtime stories
Well,
are.
I wondered if you keep to it.
I aim to keep it to 5 minutes, although that's not always the case.
No,
but
that's
we
why I
find
wondered,
that,
yeah.
you know, just with attention spans, especially you don't know what age of children are watching.
What
but it was
age
better
do you
to go
shoot
shorter.
for in general? What do you think?
You know, I like to choose my books that can kind of span all ages, right?
Oh,
And I
okay.
always tell people that, like, some people think, you know,
Oh, that's
picture
why I'm
books are just
asking.
for young kids.
Yeah.
As an adult, I love picture books,
Oh,
right? We can all gain something
absolutely.
from picture books,
Sure.
from a good story. So I don't really have
Yeah.
an age, but I, mean, I think a
No,
lot
I
of my
wondered,
I think
yeah.
a lot of my viewers are I would say preschool to like all the way up to grade 5.
Okay.
Oh, really?
nice.
That's great.
And from all over the world, I would imagine, right?
It's wild, but yes, because we're, I guess, uploading to YouTube.
Yeah.
People in different countries have
That's
even found
awesome.
it, and that's a really neat thing, right? That I'm sharing the love of reading with
Oh,
people
yeah.
literally
Yeah.
all over the world, and I just,
Fantastic.
I don't know, I consider it a real blessing, right? Like I'm
Well, I
just
salute you.
fortunate. I love being able to do it. So
Well,
shout
I
out
love
to
reading.
BPTV and Dave
Yeah.
Cable for
Yeah.
allowing.
I love reading too. I read every day history, so
And if kids
You are a history buff.
You
yeah,
are,
I can't
yeah.
stop.
We're going to paint the base. We're going to block in the cardinals. When you're painting a base of something, you're blocking it in. As it dries, and you start with darker colors. You work dark to light with acrylics. If you're doing watercolors, it's the opposite. So that might get a little tricky if you're trying to do it the same way. Watercolors, you leave the white and you work light to dark. So what we're going to do is block in everything. And then you go back in with the other layers and add the highlights and shadows and details. So we are using our 1/2-inch filbert. We're dipping it into the paint and we're using it on its edge like this.
Okay.
So look at the feathers and how the feathers lay. So, but first we're going to come up right here. This brush will go right in. We're going up to this tip and just pull it down. You can also, say that was a little bit rounder, that feather. But if you want that little wispy tail, if you start down here and go up and you pull up, you see that little, gives you that little wispy feather. It's just all in the, pulling the brush a certain way. Whoops, that got a little. And then we're going to do the same thing all along the cardinal. See how the direction of the feathers lay? We're just going to paint the brush strokes in that direction, but I'm using this brush, and again, it's a little easier with the bigger one
Yeah,
in
it
this
really
respect.
is.
So because now on this thicker part, I'm pushing down more. I can push and fill that in, and then when it gets to this, see what I'm doing here is if I'm pushing down for the thicker areas, and then I'm pulling up and just using the edge. And,
Yep.
And when you start
Okay.
inside and come out, just lift up, and you can even practice on the plate. Yeah, that's perfect. And then also make sure that if there's too much paint on the belly of the brush, it's bulgy. You're not going to get as much as of a tip. So you can take some of that out, flatten it out, and that will give you that little chiseled edge. And that's all we're going to do is block in all of this red. You want to leave some of the areas where we have the lines of the feathers. Leave some of those areas white just so you can still see where the feathers are, if that helps you. You can see how I'm just kind of leaving sections. And also what that does, it makes it lighter and darker overall. We'll have variations of color. You can see how I'm leaving that. And also it gives you some dimension and texture in the feathers because of the brush strokes. So I'm just doing, because we're blocking in, I'm not worried too much about, I always say when I'm painting feathers or fur, you paint them in a sense, in a way like shingles lay. You always start from the bottom ones first. That will apply when we do our other layers. For blocking in, not so much, because we're just using the same color. And then when it comes down here, same thing. I'll pull this. Now, when you're doing a line this big and you want it to be straight, it's easier if you go faster. Okay. And also,
I'm kind of nervous.
No,
Don't let it linger. Don't let it linger.
You can practice. So watch. You'll go faster because your hand will be more steady.
Just
but
do it.
also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let my brush. I'm still vertical like this. I'm holding it up. I'm letting it rest. See, it's kind of, I'm pushed down and resting it a little bit, and then you just pull it and pick up. That's it. So
Just do your best.
I mean, it comes with practice, like anything, but that's pretty much, if you got a little bit longer tail than I thought it was going to have, but that's okay. This is art, so, right? No mistakes.
There's no right or wrong.
No,
right?
I always tell the story.
That's the great thing about art.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I always tell the story how in high school, our teacher, freshman year too, we were all so nervous in our art class. You know, we didn't want to make mistakes we did a lot of sketching. We had to cut our erasers off our pencils. And you were not allowed to erase. You just had to think about what you were doing, and also the little mistakes. You turned them into something, and then so I learned that at a young age, and that's helped me through my whole career. So that's
helping me too.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Now, since this is what I do just for time saving purposes, and also, I don't know, just instead of cleaning off the brush before I do, I have my red on there. I'll look and see what else needs red. So I have this edge, if you're doing them the same color that we have, and I'm using the edge again, just the brush, and this is the edge of this book is red. And then I have some color. I'm just kind of cleaning up my brush. I like to move the colors around the canvas. So is this a table? Is it, I don't know. But red, well, when you move, especially reds and yellows, the cones in your eyes see red first to yellow. Maybe that's why
really?
Well, maybe that's why stop signs are red and red lights are red. You know, it sees your eye. You see, and school buses are yellow, you know, you see these. Yeah. So if we just have red here, our eye's just going to the cardinal, which is fine, but you still kind of want it to move around a little bit, the person viewing the painting. So I'm also going to put that red down there, and we'll still cover some of it, but I just feel like I want some of that in here. And we did the edge of the book, so there's also the edge over here that continues, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And then a little bit on the female, on the tail. Females are mostly browner, tan, but there is still a little bit. You can use a smaller brush too if you want, but we're going to just throw just a tiny bit on the female, okay? Mm-hmm. And that's it for the red. So then we can throw that brush in the water, and we're going to block in the books and the branches, and we'll come back and do our details. We want to make sure we have enough time for that. So what we're doing first we're going to do the pages. Okay, so what I did was I took white, and I'm making a warm gray. I don't want it to be too dark, I should say cold. I'm adding just a tiny bit of black. I always put the color beside it. And I'm going to add a tiny bit of yellow and a teeny tiny bit of red. Because what that's going to do, it's just a warmer gray. And then we're coming in the darkest area. This is shadow under here because the light source is on the left side. So again, I'm not worried about the actual pages seeing them. I'm just blocking in, right? All of the gray areas. There's a little bit more red in there, but that's okay. So all of the areas where the pages, you could see them. So I'm just blocking it in. And then let's see, that one, this one, the details will come after. There's a little bit more pink happening here, but that's okay. Because it just, again, makes it more interesting. I have more yellow on that one. And then maybe a little bit more of the yellow in there. And on this page right here, because that light this page is up in the air, so it's kind of bouncing off. And then here also, I'm just painting right over his feet. So that's the pages are blocked in. And then for the female, you know, we don't have brown, but we can mix. We have primary colors, which are red, yellow, and blue, which you can make brown, many shades of brown. So I'm going to mix those three colors and make a kind of a brown tan color. And I'm putting that on the female. Again, this is blocking in. So the paintings always look worse before they get better, you know? They just kind of look messy and funny. And whenever I do murals, people always happen to walk in at the worst time when it's like a big blob of something and they get kind of nervous and, oh my gosh, and I'm like, just trust me, it will be okay. So, because that's what, you have to have the layers underneath first, so.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm sure you have many teachers that you kind of, you give credit to, like who inspired you, who
Absolutely.
You know.
Well,
but I believe, I mean, your dad, my Uncle Danny, was also quite the artist,
he
right?
Was Sistine, I'm not kidding you, Sistine Chapel quality type of paint. Like that's the kind of work my dad did, self-taught. We have paintings and drawings my dad did when he was a kid, and in
We
high
have
school.
one too. My Nana had one, and we still have it.
Amazing.
Wow.
He was he was able to do the detail, pen and ink, paint, drawing. He would sit down and draw something in an hour in pencil. It looked like a black and white photograph.
Really?
He was amazing. Yeah.
I wonder where he got
eye,
that talent from. You know what I mean?
It's
Like, I wonder
just-
if Papa, like, I wonder what, I
Well,
don't know, like,
I know some of our relatives went to Italy, Calabria, right? There's a little town there that has, and then the ceramic shop, the Di Simone or De Simone, that
Yeah.
ceramics, that's our cousins, and they're all artists too. And it's, I mean,
runs in the
I
family.
feel like it's
Generations.
in everyone, but obviously some people more naturally than others.
Sure, yeah.
So it's just in him. I don't know. It was in him, and he was all self-taught, you know.
That's
Really?
amazing.
I
That
grew
is
up. Yeah, I grew up.
Truly amazing.
I thought everybody's dad could paint like that and draw.
Yeah.
I really did. And then my mom was very artistic and creative. My grandparents, you know, they lived through the Depression. They were like, you know, use what you have, be resourceful, get creative. You needed I need a chair, a dollhouse. Okay, let's get down and make one. You know, that kind of thing.
Wow. What a
So-
family.
Love that.
Absolutely. And then teachers in high school, grade school, of course. Even my one teacher, Mr. Missero, he was one of my favorite teachers. We stayed in touch, and he even came to our wedding. He was at our wedding.
Aw.
And my other favorite teacher, Steve Corpo, which you know, I'm sure, right?
Yes.
He lives in
Yes.
Bethel, and I believe he did classes at the Bethel Library.
A while ago, but yes.
Yeah, and so he was he was the silversmith that I did my jewelry classes
Okay.
with Mr. Corpa, and he was amazing too, ahead of his time with so many things,
Mm-hmm.
and so many teachers and people that have inspired me and still do. I mean, I'm still learning,
constantly
and getting
learning,
inspired.
right? Even-
Absolutely, definitely. But anyway, you guys, you're okay. You're doing good. So yeah, see, you got the flow. Just go with the flow.
kind of-
Don't think about it. Like, don't think about it. Just
Okay.
like do it. And
Don't
then
lose your focus.
yeah, and then you could block in the little bird there, and then I'm still going to stay with my filbert, and I'm going to block in the book. So you can, you know, change the color of the books. You do whatever you want, but I just have it. I have this one blue, and you can see I'm just using the edge of the brush to make the finer line, and then the flat part just to fill it in. Now, when I create these designs, I do these on a computer. I'm not that experienced with doing artwork on a computer, and I personally don't really like it. It's not as much fun for me as playing with the art supplies, but just a way for me to, it's a time-saving thing, just to get them created and all, instead of creating.
No, thanks for explaining that.
Yeah,
I
and so
wondered.
they do look a
Yeah.
little like smoother, not as interesting maybe, and I don't have those fancy like programs that make it look like real art. And I have nothing against it if anybody does it. I just personally like to play with my art supplies, you know?
Yeah.
So, in this bottom book, I have green. You can mix a little yellow with it if you wanted a brighter green. So whenever you're mixing any color and you want it to be lighter, that doesn't necessarily mean add white. And if you want it darker, that doesn't always mean add black. You want to use a color that is similar on the color wheel and closely related. So this green, I added some yellow, and that made it a brighter green. If I added white, it would make it a minty green.
Ah,
Again,
wow.
it doesn't matter which one
What
you
an
do.
education we're getting here.
Well, and
Thank
if you to make it darker, if you add, I love this combo of the color theory. If you want green, you have a bright green. See if you get this one, Alan, if you've been paying attention. If you have a bright green,
Yes.
and you
Just
want
testing you
more
out.
of an olive green, little knocked back a little, what color would I add to that green to make it darker and not so bright, the hue?
I put a little yellow.
Wrong. You do. It's so red is the opposite of green on the color wheel.
I was afraid to put red.
So you take red, and what it does,
I didn't know. I
see
got
how
to see
it
this.
tones it? It's more like a
Perfecto.
sagey, all of it. It tones it down.
Wow.
So that it's not so vivid, like the hue, and so you use that's why the color wheel is.
Now, see, I wouldn't have known that. You said darken it. I'm thinking,
Yes.
okay, we're putting a touch of black in there.
Yeah, if you have yellow and you want it to be more of a mustard color, you can add purple or blue. Usually purple works nice. So anyway, if you want this darker you wanted a darker green, but you don't want it to be like as dirty looking with if you add the black. So I just added that red in here, and it just tones a little bit. So it's just little color theory fun tips, which is good.
No,
So,
thank you.
sure. So I just cleaned off my brush. I had green. It's not in the picture, but I just threw some of that in the pages too, just because. All right, and then I still have some green on my brush, and I'm using that filbert, and I'm just coming in, do one little brush stroke, like that, and that's our leaves. And I'm just pushing down and pulling up some of these. This one needs to be a little bigger, I think. And when I paint the leaves, a lot of times I'll just use whatever colors were on my brush, let them mix. If you look at leaves, they're usually not just one color. You're different,
like two-tone or even multi. Yeah.
Probably would be easier with a smaller brush, but I just kept it on there. So
I went smaller.
yeah.
I needed help.
And then also for this green, you can add some blue. Blue is closely related to green, so you could see I just added some blue to make that darker. All right, so we're just almost finished blocking in. Now we don't have orange. Does anybody know what color we mixed to get orange?
Red and yellow make
Yay.
orange.
That's right.
Right?
Yes. So I'm
I
starting
was scared to
with.
ask.
You were scared. Come on, Alan. You know by now. So you always start with the brighter color. So I'm starting with yellow. I'll add the red. If you start with the red first and you have too much red, you might have to add a ton of yellow to get that color. So I started with my red, or I'm sorry, the yellow, and then just added a little bit of red. And it's still pulling in some of that green that I just threw in there, but I like it, right? It just, again, we're not painting photorealistically. We're just having fun with it.
Thank you.
And
Yes.
just let it be your own expression of art. Okay, so I have almost everything blocked in. I just want to finish blocking in the little female, the crest. So the points on their head, that's the crest. The back of their head's the nape. We have the throat, the breast, the rump is here, and the tail. So that's the different parts of the bird. All right, so we are all blocked in. So we are going to work on the birds. We zoomed in here. We are going to work on their heads and the detail of that. We're not going to work on the rest of it right now just because I want to make sure you could see what we're doing here. So for the heads, first we're going to block in the beaks. Their beaks are a cone shape, okay? And their beaks are very bright yellow to orange, but I want that orange to be very bright. So I'm first doing a base of yellow because that will make the orange a little brighter. And then females. And then I'm going to mix my orange and then put that over top, but still let some of that yellow show through. And I might need another coat on that, so I'll just fill that in. I feel like the females can be a little bit darker because she's in the distance, and I just feel like it's going to look better. Okay, so we have our beaks in there, and then we are going to grab the small liner brush here, always wet it, get that nice little tip. We're going into the black, and you may want to add a little bit of water just so it flows nicely, and then always pull this liner brush like this, just twirl it and get those bristles back into a little tip. So what we're coming in here and doing is, so do the letter C, and then do a backward C, and there's your eye, okay? And then just fill it in. It's just easier than trying to make a circle. And then we'll do the little highlight on there. And now what we're going to do, since we have this, is we're going to do the little mask on the females don't have this, but the males have this mask. So you can see I'm just doing tiny little brush strokes and not worrying about it being a perfect straight edge because it's feathers, right?
Yep.
So I'm just kind of laying it in. Just think about the direction of the feathers. It comes under the beak. And then when you do these feathers, they're going to be coming down this way. So I'll start up here and let that little tail of the feather come out and extend over the red a little bit. And then just for some definition, if you just use just the tip of the brush, make sure there's not too much paint. and you can get some of these little lines. And then I'll make sure, again, very thin, even probably a lot of the paint off of the brush, but just a hint of it. And I'm coming in and just doing a tiny little line. I don't want it to be too bold where the upper and the lower beak meet. Okay, and then I can even outline it a little bit. You don't want too much. I'm actually going to put a little bit of red. If I put a little bit of red in the black, it will make it like a deep wine or burgundy color, and that I think is going to be nicer for outlining some of this bird instead of just the black. Too much water in there. If you happen to get too much water, just dab it off with your finger or a towel or something. And then don't forget their little nair, which is the nose right here where they breathe. It's called a nair on a bird. I learned that from being at the aviary all the time, all these bird things, you know.
That's great.
You can shade it a little bit here. So a lot of times I'll just take a dry brush and just blend. So what I'm doing is I use the black, and then also I'm going to use the black areas on the female, but then I'm going back in and I was mixing red in with the black to make it a softer, warmer black for my outlines. So for her, we're coming in, we're defining the definition of the crest, and you can see I just do those tiny little brush strokes. I hardly even touch, but you can see that looks like little feathers. And again, keeping in mind the direction that the feathers lay, and then her little eyes. The one on the right side's bigger because of the way her head's tilted. And then we'll define her little beak there. And then the shadows are on the right side of her because the light source is on the left. And not that we're worried too much about being so technical, but if you do that, just by doing that little shadow, it gives her some dimension, right? And then we'll add the highlights on the left side, and it's just a way of just bringing your art a little bit to life, and that's just highlights and shadows. That's all it is. So I always tell people, just study when you're sitting at a traffic light or sitting at your house. Like, I'll look around anywhere I'm sitting or sitting waiting for something. I'm always looking at the shadows on everything. You can often tell if you're looking at a landscape painting, depending on how long the shadows or short the shadows are, you can tell what time of day it was. So I just like to pay attention to those things too, and it helps whenever you're painting. It just becomes kind of second nature to know where to put the shadow, because I don't have a picture of these guys in where the shadow would be, but it's even under here, under her belly, that would be in shadow because her belly's over top. And then we're just coming in, and I did forget to draw her tail, but I'm adding that now. And again, there'd be more shadow on this side of that little tail. So you could see just those little details. It's not overly detailed, but it's just enough, and then we'll add the highlights too that will bring her to life. And we can't forget their little feet, their legs. So her little leg, again, I'm just using the very tip of this brush, little toes, and her other little leg here. And then the branch, while we're here, I can just put some little, just here and there, not completely outlining everything, but just adding some little details. If I pull the brush like this, and then if I draw a little tiny line, and then like right here, little, and then maybe push on the brush, and then push a little more, and it just make it very, keep it looser, and not so perfect because it's a branch, right? So they're not perfectly straight, I would think. Most of them are not. And then that gives it, again, that to our eyes, looking at this, that's shadow. And that's that's the warmer black. So I mixed a little red with it, and then just kept it a little warmer. And then we can detail some more things here too, you can do as much detail or little, as you'd like. And then I'm gonna finish the other head here. See, I let it dry a little bit, and then I'll come in and just define, just here and there. I'm not doing every feather, and then I go back over this with the red too, but I just want to pick out a little bit of this. Okay, you guys are so quiet.
Even Al.
Yes.
It's just so unusual.
And you can see here.
See, I can be quiet.
Yeah. And now on these sections, the layers of their feathers, you can come in, and I left those white areas. I'm coming in with the brush, and then I'm pushing, and that looks like a shadow. So that looks like these feathers are laying on top of those feathers.
Yeah, it does. I didn't leave enough
No,
white.
that's okay.
But that's okay.
Yeah, just so you know. And then what we'll do is we'll highlight those others. That's when it really matters that you do the lower ones first. And then the little highlights. Let's do, the little highlights are very, very important on the eyes. So we're taking this brush, make sure it's clean. You have that tiny little tip, and you put the little highlight right there, maybe on the one side of the eye. And then we'll do some little highlights on the upper beak, and I just put some black accidentally there. I'll get that off. And then also on the female's eyes, if you can. If the little white spot is too big, it looks kind of funny. But if you can get it small enough, that little dot.
I'm going to use your old trick.
Yeah, and you can see.
Can I get the back of the brush?
You can use the back of the brush, sure.
Oh.
You can test it on the plate first.
It's too big.
No, test it on the plate first. And then since I have that white right here, I can do some little highlights on that left side of the female, and then a couple little highlights.
It was too big, and I did.
That's okay. Okay, so that's our little highlights. Okay, so we're good, and then we'll show the rest of the painting. Okay, so we're back out now. Now we're going to start detailing everything, okay? So those little guys here. So we're going to start with the feathers on the cardinal. So I am still taking that filbert brush again. We will work with the small brush too, but make sure your filbert brush is nice and clean and dry, and you have that nice little chiseled edge. I always just go like this and just get that water out. So what we're doing now is, you can see, this is where you want to pay attention to the shadows. The light source is here. You see, we'll add the lighter. Always, we're going to work dark to light. We're doing all the dark areas, then we'll do the light. Light source is here, under that wing, under the rump, under the tail. You can see that's where all our little shadows are, right?
Yep.
So we don't want to have to overdo it, but we'll just add that. So instead of using the straight black, take some black. I'm going to change my plate. There's another plate under yours too, Alan, if you need it.
I may need it.
So we're just taking the black, and I am going to add some more red. Again, it makes it a softer black, and it just tones it. It's still dark. Our eyes see it as a shadow and dark, but it's just prettier than just that harsh black, in my opinion. So what we're doing is we're getting that nice little chiseled edge, and we're just coming in and just like this. We're just adding anywhere you want that shadow, under that, the wing. You have the covert feathers. You have all kind of feathers in there. And then I think, I wonder if that's where the covert operation comes from.
I
that
wonder.
When they fly, because there's a certain
that.
section of the feathers. Who knows? I don't know that much. I just know enough to
You're dangerous.
get in trouble, but I
You're
don't
dangerous.
really know. Yeah, I have a lot of bird friends that know everything about birds. And that's pretty much it for that big brush. And then we'll look here. Now, the one thing that's nice about this filbert, you see how it's shaped, right? And we have these little curved shapes. Anywhere you have a curved shape or a flower, you do anything. So if I want to do this little shadow right here in the, what do we call this part? Oh, I'm stuck.
Ooh.
My pickle's stuck in your plate.
Oh, my goodness.
This part of the book, what are the parts of the book?
The spine of the book?
The spine. Yes, I know. So you can see, just by getting that shadow, that shape, we can use the filbert for that. We can do here. Okay. I feel like that needs blended out. Now I'm going to take the small liner brush, use the same colors, black and the red, and then now we're going to define. Again, we're working darker. We will do the highlights last. Right in here. Again, you can see I'm just doing like little short brush strokes to just define some of these feathers. Okay. And then these little guys. And what this is the shadow between the feathers. And maybe some might come, you could do a couple of like this way. They don't have to be perfect all the same direction.
Mine aren't.
Like over top of the leg, where the legs come down. And just very loose, just use that tip of the brush. And then you have his little, the legs you can keep darker, even though their legs are more like a gray, but they're in shadow too. And it's just, again, we're not over detailing everything. So we have his little toes here. Oops, that one does not look right. I'll fix that when I do the book color. Okay, and then this one, down this way. Okay, and then that, she has her feet already. And then just under the tail, like under here, we have a couple little shadows. And then now, since I have this brush, we want to define the dark areas on the book pages, right? So we have this right here. So you can see I'm just kind of laying the brush down and just I'm letting it rest. And then just pull your hand. And that way it's easier to try to get a straighter line. And then we have the pages here, and then it goes up like that. And then there's some shadows. Now just the tiny, tiny tip of that brush with hardly any paint on it, and just picking out, just giving the definition. And if you want less paint, you just add some water to your paint mixture, and then just take some of that extra paint off on the plate. And then this, we're just going to pull in some of these pages here. Okay. So Elaine, where can we see you reading your book, Miss Elaine?
5 Minute Bedtime Stories is aired on BPTV, but you can also find it on YouTube.
We're out on YouTube.
Trying to think, and then we put it. Sometimes I'll put it on my Facebook page,
Okay.
but it is on the Bethel Park Library's website.
Okay, great.
Keep focusing. I understand your focus.
Sorry, I know. I feel bad.
Why can't I
That's okay.
do more than one thing?
That's okay, because you're focused. I get it.
Who are you again?
Right?
Oh, just checking. Couldn't hold back.
Your Nana's name
No,
comes
but-
up often in conversations, especially like if people don't, they're like, especially when I was younger and my hair was always, we were all blondes, most of us, and it was like,
Yes.
You're not Italian, you have blonde hair. I'm like, well, I'm half Italian, and there are people in Italy that have blonde hair, like Northern Italy is
Northern
lighter.
region, yeah.
Exactly. So, and I said, well, I have an aunt, Mafalda Victoria Fittipaldo. And they go, oh,
You're Italian.
So, and like, so that proves
It's so
it,
funny
right?
because I love that, right? Because it's
love
such a
her
unique
name.
name, but she was so embarrassed by it.
Really?
That she would tell people, oh, she introduced herself like to strangers and whatnot
Really?
as Mary.
Oh,
She went by Mary.
I never
But I
knew
love
that.
Mafalda.
I loved her name. Well, because it was like that old time, like to her, maybe she wanted more of a modern name or something, or not
Probably,
so.
you know.
Yeah, but I loved it. And I still, to this day, I scrub my cucumbers and I think of her
I remember
every
you
time I
telling me
scrub my
that.
cucumbers, because I can
I know.
remember like,
It's funny, certain things like in the
I kn-
kitchen
oh,
that I
so
do.
many things, yeah. But I can remember she'd be
And that's where she
standing-
spent most of her time, right?
Exactly.
Right.
And that was back when, like, we didn't even have all the things on our food like we do now. They probably didn't even
Oh my
matter. But
gosh.
she'd be, scrubbing those cucumbers. And I remember standing there watching her and like, wow, she
She
really
got
did
all
it clean. Like, wow, she didn't really go. You know, I don't know how
She
old
got
I
all
was.
the dirt off.
Yeah, and I still to this day, I do it and I think of her every
love
single
it.
time. Like so many things. And just think of her smiling and all the aunts and everybody when they get together. Just so
Yeah.
special, you know.
Thanks for sharing
was
your
a
memories. I
really-
love it.
Yeah.
Special time.
But Elaine's dad, oh my gosh, telling this story. So it's the story of the goat that ate the sausage or something, right?
Really?
Yes.
Yes.
Tell us.
But the way he did it, and your dad was a big, larger
Animated,
than life,
right? He
and
was like, I
he
think-
was just amazing storyteller, and that was like the best part of going there. Honestly, is we would just wait for him to tell the story. Yeah, and you said,
Story
I love
time.
that.
and it's
So it's caprio.
We always said
Caprio
yeah.
means little goat
Right.
in Italian. Capro would be an adult goat. Caprio is the little baby goat.
Okay.
So here we have this little baby
But we
goat.
always said clapio or something,
She's
right?
like,
We always
"Caprio."
said
you know how
clapio.
pronunciation like gets lost and things
Yeah.
get, you know. But yeah, Caprio. Little baby
'Cause
goat
then he'd
eating
go
all
like-
the
he'd be
sausage.
like this,
And it was a
and-
poor little Italian
Yeah.
woman, you
Oh,
know,
wow.
a widow, lived by herself, and she lived off of her sausage.
Wow.
She'd eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, as the story
Nice.
goes, right?
I don't even
And then
remember.
this Caprio came in and ate it all, and well, poor little woman
She
didn't
couldn't
know what
eat.
to do.
Yeah,
I don't even
and
remember.
she was hungry.
But I just, I didn't know what that was, so I just assumed it was a bull. I always I pictured
Right?
it
And I
being
would
a
say
big
like
bull.
moose or deer,
Yeah,
like
you
usually
would-
antlers on their head. But yeah, in fact, it is a baby goat.
That's interesting. Thank
really
you.
cool. I love it.
Great story.
Yeah. Yeah. Good
Well, I was so
food,
thrilled
good
when I found that out. Like when I finally discovered what Caprio meant.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and then you do some research. And
I would love to
goats
see-
are prevalent
Yeah.
in that area of Italy. I
Definitely.
guess all over Italy, but they'll just like
Have
kind
you
of walk
seen
and roam free.
they have goats in the trees too?
Oh yeah. Well, I
Goats
don't know
climb
about
up
over-
and there's
yeah.
a bunch of goats in a tree.
Well, see,
In
I
some
didn't
areas.
know. So goats are good climbers.
Yes.
See, that would
Yeah.
make sense, Maria, right? Because
Right,
she
yeah.
goes, the sausage was hanging in the attic to
Oh,
dry.
right, right.
So this Caprio would go in the attic window. And so I was thinking, well, how would a goat get up there? But if goats are good climbers, then
They
that makes
are,
sense.
Yeah. Glad I could help you on that.
Thank you.
We need that in print. We need that book.
I'm
in print.
working on it, and
That
I'm really
would be
hoping that
awesome.
Amara, Patricia's daughter,
Yeah.
will do the illustrations for
Oh,
me.
that would be really.
So, yeah,
it's
gonna be
like
a
another
family project.
generation. Yeah. Very nice.
That is great, ladies. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And cousins.
Oh yeah. All right, so I'm just kind of filling in shadows. Just look at your shadows and highlights. Also, one last thing I want to do, we want to make sure we get to with this bird. So now we have the lightest, the mid-tones and the lightest of the feathers. That's, you can see he's getting more dimension. That's what's going to bring him to life. So first, I feel like I need a little shadow. So what I just did here is I took my brush, it's wet, and I just really a thin, very thin layer of the paint, and I just like a glaze right there, and it just shaded his underbelly a little bit. And then we're going to take.
But what colors did you? So
I
kind of
just
just
used
grab.
the same color, the dark, but I just
Okay.
thinned it out and then just did very quick light, because you can't stay on there too long. If you stay on there with the wet, it will reactivate the other layer and pull it back off.
Oh, wow.
So you want to
Thanks
do
for
it
the
real quick.
tip.
I did a very thin layer. So now I'm taking this small filbert, little 1/4 inch filbert, and I'm coming in. So remember I mentioned before, if you want to make a color lighter, if we have red and we want a brighter, lighter red, what do you think you'd add to that?
White.
Okay, we can, but that'll make it pinker.
Yellow.
So we don't want it,
Yeah.
yes, so yellow is that next closest brighter
I'm learning.
color. So you're getting there. So first I'm going
It's
to
tough.
do some yellow with the red, because it's going to make a brighter red. And then I'll hit the feathers. You can see just, you might have to still add, I'm still adding a little bit of white, but more yellow in the red than white, okay? And so now I'm hitting, same direction, some of these feathers. I feel like mine's not even showing up.
I feel like this is too big of a brush.
Yeah, I grabbed the small filbert. Sorry about that. And then I'm just hitting just some of this yellow, orangey red. Not too much, just some here and there. Maybe I'll put a little bit on her, maybe a little bit on this book, maybe some here, clean off my brush. Now I'm taking that
Take notes on
small-
that.
Yeah, now I'm taking that small liner brush and I'm just doing the straight yellow, bright yellow. Now I'm just going to pick out a less amount than I did with that other color that I just worked with. Just here and there, just a couple. We don't want them to look like a yellow cardinal, or even though there are yellow cardinals. I don't know if you guys can
Yes,
see the cardinal behind that Johno did. There are yellow cardinals up in there, and there are actual yellow cardinals, and I did not know that until Johno was doing research for that painting, and we discovered that. So that's why there are yellow cardinals up in there. So now you can see I just hit that. It just looked like the sunshine, right? Not necessarily that he's a yellow bird. And then I will take white, but I'm not worried about it being a true white. It can be white with that little bit of yellow in there if your brush did not get as clean. And I'm doing very last final little highlights, just here and there. Ooh, still water in my brush. Little highlight. And just pick out just a couple little spots. That's my other, one of these brushes had a really chubby tip. Okay, just here and there, just pick out a couple little highlights and maybe up on his beak. And then these couple little feathers here. So the tips of the feathers that are on top of that shadow. So these feathers, that's the shadow from this row. So on the tips of these is where I'll put that highlight, okay? And then just a couple on her little wing feathers, maybe just here and there. And then it's just a matter of you just look at it and and decide where you want to highlight, where you want a shadow. Okay, and I'll just do some little highlights. Now we also need them on our book pages. We're going to take that white, motorcycle, some yellow, some little streaks here. There's some white. And that just, by putting the dark color on the pages first, that becomes the shadow, and then you have the white. And that's why you work dark to light. And then this under here is probably brighter, right? And then this table, or oh, I got green on there by accident.
Oh, I gotta get leaves
so I
and
accidentally
everything.
put some green
I
in
know.
here.
I gotta go back and get my pages.
No,
I'm like,
you're
what
good.
did I forget?
You're good. So I accidentally got some green in there, but you know what? I'm going to leave it, right?
Yeah. What are we doing down here at the bottom? Kind of just whatever.
Yeah,
Or we
yeah.
didn't
So
get there
you
yet?
have a shadow here. You did put the shadow over here. Okay. And now I was still just doing my little highlights, and then I'm just going to look and see where I need any highlight, shadow, maybe another layer of the red if you want the red to pop. And then I did accidentally drip some little speckles. So I'm going to add some more because I'm just going to do some maybe blue. I'm taking my blue and I'm throwing some water on it. And I'm just going to do some more speckles.
Ooh,
because,
I like that.
well, I mean,
because that's how we turn a mistake into
exactly. Because if I left those, if I tried to fix them, it would probably really be tricky to fix
Oh
that.
my gosh,
with that.
I love that. So what did you do? You were just kind of tapping the paintbrush?
So I put some wet, very wet solution of the paint, and then I just tapped the brush.
How about that
cute? So you can
technique?
add
Yeah,
texture.
I like that.
And that's all. I mean, so now it's a matter of just
What
taking-
color did you use?
I used the blue,
light
and
blue.
I
Alright.
thinned it. And then, you know, it all comes down to, you can play around with these forever, right? Oh, I got it back there. The other thing I wanted to do too is on the books, on the binding, you might want to do some little accents. And if you curve, you see these little lines, if you curve it, that again makes that book look like it's curved. And then if you want some, maybe a little highlight, I use my finger like that. And then if you want any words of any kind, you can do the suggestion of maybe, I don't know, maybe, I have a little heart on that one. Maybe I'll put, I'm going to put a little heart. That's for our dads.
I like that.
Yeah. And then
Okay,
maybe,
I'm adding that too.
yeah, and just like suggestion
That's
of
the Caprio story right
yes, and this could be like a suggestion of that there's words there. You can't really tell what it is. You can't read it, but maybe there's something there.
It says something love
Yeah.
upside down.
Okay, so I think
there. Do you know what my most cherished book is? I mean, there's so many picture books that I
Yeah.
love, or chapter books and young, all kinds of books
yeah.
that I love. And like the ones that I really like, I will, I'll purchase so that I own them, right? But
Yeah.
I always like yell at people like, why are you buying books when you can go to the library and
Right,
get your books for free?
exactly.
But every once in a while you
No,
have
I
your
buy
favorites
books,
that you
yeah.
want to hold on to. But my very favorite, most prized book
Yeah.
is my Nana's Memories, like the scrapbook,
Wow.
right? That like
That's
she
awesome.
would tell these
Oh,
stories.
yeah.
When I was young, probably I don't know, maybe 11 or 12, and my sister
Yeah.
would sit there too, and we would just record these stories.
I'm so
right?
glad
So
you
there's
did
there's
that.
like a book
Yeah.
of prompts, like right, like tell us
That-
about your childhood, your favorite childhood memory.
That is so
Things
great.
like that, and then we
Yeah.
have those, and I just every once in a while, like I know them now, right? But I
Sure.
still like to go back and.
I'm so glad you did
Oh,
And
that.
I
read
reread
them.
Nice.
books just for that purpose. It's a
Yeah.
great memory.
It's a great memory. Yep.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
No, I'm with you.
So-
That is great.
Okay. Well, I'm just adding little highlights and shadows, but like I said, you can just keep playing with it. But
Well, I got to catch up a little first.
yeah, I do have a little boo-boo there. I'll fix it, but
Don't tell us. We won't know.
all right. One more thing that I do have in the branch that I think is a little fun. Sorry, is just throwing in again, like when I clean off my brush. I forgot to do that on the branch. I like to add. See how just have that little bit that looks like little sunshine hitting the branch.
Oh yeah.
Maybe add some red. I don't know. Just it's art. Just make it whatever you want, right?
Guess what?
I
I can
mean,
do that.
Again, the goal is not to make it
Easy
look like
for you
mine,
to say.
but to create.
No,
the
you're
paint.
right, but you
Well,
kind of just have fun with it, right?
and I can see you have a
practice.
certain style. Alan does. He's great. He's very heavy-handed and does more like boulder shapes. No,
Uh-huh.
like more modern. You'd be really good at water. You have a very like soft touch, but still like you like detail, right?
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, but you need like
You
you
were
could work on
focused,
that
I
for
know
another
that.
5 hours probably.
Easily.
Yeah. So, but that's okay. Well, we're going to stop and we're going to finish our paintings and then we'll reveal. All right, so we finished. We're all done, right? I know, and yes, these are things, you can work on your painting for 5 hours, 10 hours, as much as you want. You can keep adding details, but we got them done. They look great. So let's show everybody your paintings. They look fantastic. And look at the
Thank
birds.
you.
Look at the expressions on the little birds. They all have different faces, right?
My
Good job.
female's wide-eyed open.
I love them. They look fantastic. You did it, Elaine. You painted and you talked.
Only
and
because
For not
I
being
had
a
the best
painter,
teacher.
you did great.
Oh,
It looks
thank
wonderful.
you. I
love
had so
it.
much fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Thanks
being
for
a
having
great
me.
guest and painter.
Thanks for
I
having
love
me.
it.
You're welcome.
And yes, you can add more details if you want as it dries.
When
but
you get home.
I love it just the way it is. I would leave it go. So anyway, that's great. All right, so episode 30, right, is the next one.
Yes.
Yes. So episode 30, this is actually from a photograph. My friend Guy, if you've ever been to a Steeler game or tailgating or seen it on TV or online, you have seen her and you will recognize her. And we'll leave that for the
Save it
show.
for the next-
Her name
It's
is
a
Dee.
tease for next time.
Big Steeler fan. I believe she goes to every single game, no matter where it is. And this is a photograph she took. They live part-time in Sedona, Arizona. And this is her husband, Tom. They hike all the time, and I call it the hiker. And I did simplify it because there was a lot of detail in the rock formations and everything. But this is from Guy's photograph in Sedona. So she's going to be here with us to paint that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
So, all right. Well, thank you for joining us. And go with the flow, right?
Yes.
Enjoy painting and learning.
Flow.
We're
Thanks
still
for-
learning. So, all right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.